Around a year ago, internet history was made. Az of the channel Heel vs Babyface had been playing the newly released Starfield, only to be confounded by two aspects of the game. First, the optional pronoun toggle in the character creator, and second, a female character revealing she was a clone of a dude. Az's response, in the face of these two fleeting non-issues, was calm and measured.
I just want to say something to you, Bethesda. Just want to say a little something. I love nothing more than to be dragged out at every fucking conceivable opportunity so you can fucking current day us. Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns! Fucking gender ambiguity! Fucking current day Californian shit! Because that's all we fucking know! Because we're boring!
I made a video on this moment at the time. The idea of some abstracted qualities of immersion and escapism being threatened by the game interested me. Who gets to escape? What are they escaping from exactly? Like I said, video on that. And initially, that video's comments were united in confused derision toward the rant in question. But as the months went by, more and more, viewer opinion seemed to be changing a little. I totally agree with the heel guy. I think he had a point, but it's still funny AF to Az watch. Is right and you know Az was ahead of the time. He knew what was up and they hated him because he told the truth. And so on. Don't get me wrong, these are still the minority, but the percentage of Az truthers has certainly grown month on month. Today then, I want to look back a year, re-examine that moment and all the moments leading up to it, take that rant and its online afterlife as a sort of case study for how viral content gets remembered, and how it doesn't. What can we learn from Pronouns Guy 1 year on? What is the legacy of that most viral of meltdowns? Was he right about Starfield? Or is the game good actually? Or is framing the question this way just a little misleading? Well, I'm glad you asked. And by the way, this video might have had a better chance of making the actual 1 year anniversary of this moment if I'd started using today's sponsor, ClickUp, a bit sooner. So give me a minute to tell you about that before we get to Starfield, yeah? ClickUp is the ultimate productivity tool. It's a free app that kind of replaces a whole bunch of others. You got documents, calendars, charts, collaborative drag and drop project checklists, and so much else. And in the couple of weeks I've been using it, I've found it super helpful for YouTubing. I know I've got more than a few would-be or beginner content creators in my audience, so this one's for you guys. Here are my attempts to keep organized before ClickUp, and here's what that looks like now. I've set up a content calendar that shows me in simple color-coded terms what I've got to do and when. I can attach files, I can give other people access to these, and Pillar of Garbage is pretty much a one-man show, but if you're looking to make the sort of stuff that'd have you liaising with an editor or co-writer for instance, ClickUp's the ideal tool to get you sharing all your files and tasks and deadlines just like that. And honestly, I've barely scratched the surface. There's tons for all of you outside the content space too. Look, Gantt chart functionality. So if you want to kick up your YouTubing, general project management skills, or you even want a way to keep up with your backlog of shows, movies, or games, I do really recommend using ClickUp. It's super easy to get started with, and you can go to my link, tryclickup.co/pillarofgarbage, to create a free account and make that start today. But that's enough about starts. Let's talk about Starfield. Make sure you put in the comments how much you loved that segue, by the way. Starfield is a sci-fi action RPG released in 2023 by Bethesda Game Studios, their first new IP in decades. It's set hundreds of years in the future, has you fly around in spaceships, explore barren planet after barren planet, and jump through hoops. I'm a big Bethesda guy, always have been. I love a lot of their older games like Kroll loved his Hillock, so I got the game myself eventually, and for me it's fine. The combat's engaging enough, I like the art direction, the graphics do it for me, and while some characters, some quest lines are misses, some are hits. For me, and this is subjective, it also accomplishes something the best BGS games always have. It envelops you in the vibes. The lived-inness of spaces like Aquila City, the lush wilderness of a planet like Cassiopeia 1, the sublime solitude of some of these abandoned space installations, and so on, all tied together with Inonzo's score. The vibes are on point, and that's the reason you'd see all those Be a Peasant mods or playthroughs for Elder Scrolls games. In a well-created and well-maintained Bethesda vibe, you can enjoy doing nothing. And that's good, because sometimes there isn't a lot more than nothing to do. Starfield is a game with a lot of sizzle, but perhaps less substance. Often impressively wide, just as often infuriatingly shallow. The more you play, the more certain systems feel underbaked. Aspects like the settlement building and the space traversal feel like they've had once important features taken out. I'll quote the blurb of Chris Tapsel's review for Eurogamer. I think it's the best and fairest I've read. Starfield pairs near impossible breadth with a classic Bethesda aptitude for systemic physics, magnetic side quests, and weird vignettes. But in sacrificing direct exploration for the sake of sheer scale, there's nothing to bind it together. And however defensive the internet was to begin with, post-launch fan discourse increasingly grew to echo that note of disappointment, that nothing to bind it together sentiment. Some of the most popular videos on the topic assert that the game's a whole lot of nothing, call the game design painfully outdated, and call the whole thing a galactic disappointment. Doubtless, what takes some players from measured satisfaction to continuing criticism is the context, the time and resources Bethesda had while making the game, and the bolder, more imaginative past of the studio, as well as some of the steps Bethesda's competitors have taken that haven't been matched in-house. And as much as I do feel the internet's developing negativity over Starfield goes too far in places, I'm convinced any players calling it terrible or similar simply haven't played that many games yet. Criticism coming from this angle isn't unfair. Ultimately, Starfield does leave a lot to be desired. So, despite facing mockery from all corners of the internet, despite an acute case of corncob-itis, Az spotted what the internet didn't, at least so early. Starfield not good, and his critics, myself included, were in time made fools. Was Az right? Yeah, case closed, right? Except, that isn't actually what he said, is it? Don't worry, I'm not going to play you the whole thing. I learned my lesson there. But the text of Az's rant isn't so much Starfield bad, as it is, I liked this game and was psyched to keep playing it until I got angry at what I perceived as the presence of gender ambiguity. If being reminded of gender ideology, whatever gender ideology may be, stops you, quote, having a good time, getting your, quote, immersions, then before this happened, before you learnt this woman was a partial clone of a man and had a prolonged 40-minute meltdown, that does suggest you were having a good time. The much mocked emotional tenor of Az's rant supports this too, right? While raising your blood pressure this high over an optional pronoun toggle and the fairly standard sci-fi trope of a gender-swapped clone never makes sense, it's easier to understand Az going this bananas over a fun time being, quote, ruined than by a slog. You know what else supports this? The context. The rant came about 6 hours into Az's Starfield gameplay, and all that was streamed. So, I watched the VODs back. Az's first stream is full of praise, not unreservedly so, he is a little more mixed on the ship control scheme, but other than that, it's pretty clear he's having a good time with the game.
You can actually refine quite a bit of this. This is, I like it. Looks, I tell you what, it looks gorgeous. I like the gunplay, I like the exploration, I like the look of it. I need to get to grips with the spaceship bit. That bit I'm totally fucked in the head about at the minute. It looks beautiful. I gotta say, it does look beautiful.
A couple of times during the first hour of his second stream, that is, not too long before the infamous rant took place, Az clarifies to chat his feelings on the game so far.
How's the game so far? So far, it's solid. Not mind-blowing, but it's solid and it's interesting. So it's got my interest. Hey, this is a pretty good-looking game, you know.
The mood only really changes when Az finds out the truth of the clone, and when he attaches current day, gender ambiguity, and pronouns to that reveal. Az finds less and less to like about the game after that point, and more to criticize, no surprise there.
It's just got me infuriated. It's just got me fucking infuriated. Current fucking day. Sorry, what did you say? I wasn't listening. You're whammon.
Someone paid attention in current events.
No, I just don't care.
But at that point, as the text of his rant and the VOD it lies in makes clear, Starfield is, to him, a solid game, no complaints, marred by forced-in, current-year politics. In other words then, the take as expressed in that crucial moment is sort of the opposite of what his defenders are now alleging. What, as we'll go on to see, he is now alleging too. So what's going on here then? One thing that's always fascinated me is the way that taking pictures of something can actually make you remember that thing less. Cognitive psychologist Linda Henkel provided the first real evidence of this in 2014, summarizing the findings of her studies as such. Participants were led on a guided tour of an art museum and were directed to observe some objects and to photograph others. Results showed a photo-taking impairment effect. If participants took a photo of each object as a whole, they remembered fewer objects and remembered fewer details. Since then, the research has been corroborated in further studies. Take a camera to the museum, snap a bunch of pictures, and paradoxically, you'll likely be less able to recall exactly what it is you'd seen than if you'd raw-dogged the museum. And maybe that's a part of what's going on here. Some recent research, like this article by Daniel L. Schachter, has found that technologies like the internet have only pushed the danger of this type of memory distortion even further. And Twitter clips going viral, edits on edits, soyjack after soyjack after soyjack? We took 1 million cameras to the Pronouns guy Rant, and then his viewers took a few more. We all think that we remember it, so we never need to remember it, let alone revisit it. That being said, let's not forget, this isn't just some video. It's a specific video from a specific guy from a specific crowd who have a specific MO, specifically the lack of specificity. Let me explain. A while back I made a video, Woke Spotting Explained, how the grift works. That video laid out the basic methodological blueprint behind a lot of the anti-woke media content online. I described what I called woke spotting, a form of laser-focused, bad-faith interpretation that contorts individual details within a work into support for foregone culture war conclusions. Key examples I used included the reaction Az's stream buddy Shadiversity had to the moment in the Mario movies trailer where we see Peach wearing trousers, or the way that so many of these content creators pitched a fit over Nebula wearing a somewhat baggy t-shirt in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 promo images. My point was that mass audience outrage in these cases was facilitated by creators isolating parts of a work and reducing those snapshots to objects and positions. In those examples, the objects are the ostensibly unladylike articles of clothing, positioned as replacing other proper womanly dress. Importantly, the character of those details or moments, in Peach's case her long history of wearing trousers to Mario Kart, the fact that the trouser shot comes in between a ton of classic outfit shots, not to mention whatever narrative or thematic juice the suiting up might have brought, these are simply not relevant to the woke spotting mode of thought. The moment is simply boiled down to the most basic version of itself which fits that projected on wokeness, and the work ceases to matter as itself, has meaning only as a link in this grand imagined pattern, as the position it's placed into, here subversion of archaic gender norm in game's film adaptation. Now the structuralists in the audience may well respond to that by pointing out that everything, even the details and the specific characteristics of a work, ultimately hold whatever meaning they do through their relative positions within vast, layered linguistic or cultural patterns, and they wouldn't be wrong to point that out, but one of the things that makes woke spotting such a malignant anti-art practice is the way it allows all those other patterns to be ignored, forcibly grounds any further interpretation beyond that woke object position matrix. And I wonder if that's the other part. If having been led to think in these terms, to detach substance and detail from impression and position, has caused the woke spotter's viewership to run with it, to carry that detachment over from the works under the spotting glass to the works of those spotters, to boil down the relative complexity of Az's implicit defense of Starfield and the possibilities Starfield offers from a perceived jamming in of inauthentic, ill-fitting, corrosive woke mores of good thing is being ruined, to simply what it appears to be on that most basic of levels, a negative reaction to Starfield. Starfield bad. And one of the reasons I'm wondering this is that the whole as Starfield thing isn't the only time I've had waves of this type of revisionist comment roll in. Back in January, I made a video about some online responses to the then unreleased Marvel miniseries Echo. Essentially what had happened was a phone recording of a fight scene had leaked ahead of the show's release, and a lot of the usual suspects were playing this low-quality clip, often without sound, and comparing this defaced reality to invoked, pristine memories of previous well-regarded fight scenes, in order to drum up negativity and condemnation for Echo before the show had even aired. That video was explicitly not a praise or defense of Echo. It couldn't have been, in fact. As I said in the video, at time of writing, I'd only seen the first episode myself, the context for that leaked clip. My video used that distorted comparison alongside one or two other cases as an example of the ways the impression of evidence or knowledge can substitute in for the real deal. The way Thing can be made bad even if neither you nor your viewers have seen Thing. The point of my Echo discussion was that if you're misleading enough in your argument, the process of manipulating the narrative around a text or texts can be more or less independent of the texts themselves. And yet, as the weeks rolled on, as the online consensus on Echo being pretty mediocre was reached, rightly or wrongly, and as that video broke containment, algorithmically speaking, attempted counterpoints started trickling into the comments section. This show still sucks though. Consume your trash. Except those shows are shite. Echo is trash, dawg. A lot of people, it seems, experienced that video simply as me saying, some people think Echo bad, but I think they're wrong. And that wasn't a one-off either. It's a similar story with a few of my Star Wars related videos. Late-coming viewers flattening down specific criticisms I pushed back against as blanket show bad statements, and my pushback as generic show good noise. So while internet and nuance don't tend to mix great at the best of times, while people missing points is pretty much par for the online course, examples like this make me think that the internalization of these thought-terminating, hyper-simplifying modes of thought, modes more focused on categorizing works or opinion than engaging with them among these audiences, might go some way toward explaining what we're seeing here and elsewhere. Now, perhaps framing as was right revisionism in terms of viewers more widely learning from their smooth brain faves is giving these creators too much credit, but however it's come about, this is what's happened. Pronouns Guy's retrospective defenders are ignoring what he said, overruling the words of a creator they'd profess to admire in a series of attempts to score empty, ideologically tinged gotchas. And there's something almost sad about that. Almost, but not quite. Because he's just as interested in doing that revisionism himself. And this is kind of the funny part, because when I started writing this video back in August, I would have had a harder time evidencing that claim. I had a plan, of course. I was going to go back to Az's initial run of view farming the Rant's virality and show you all the little ways he'd already started reframing the events of those VODs and the opinions they displayed. Stuff like giving his post-Rant 30 hours played opinions as though they described his thoughts at time of Rant, that kind of thing. But we don't need to do that anymore. Because earlier this month, something happened, and I had to put this video on the back burner. And by the time I picked it back up, Az had come out with his own 1 year on video, which at once ruined the titling convention I was planning to use for this video, and made this part about 100 times easier to write. That video kicks off with Az explicitly claiming that illusory victory. He was right about Starfield.
How is Starfield actually performing, and has the game turned itself around? TLDR, no, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I was right. I was right all along.
The direct revisionism follows shortly thereafter.
Over a guy melting down over how sick and tired he was of stupid things in video games and video games itself being boring. The much anticipated Starfield game turning out to be nothing more than an absolute damp squib.
Again, looking back to the text of the rant, it's clear that Az wasn't saying the game generally was boring. The perceived woke mores of Bethesda Western Game Company were what Az called boring. As we saw a few minutes ago, he was enjoying the game just fine before the clone-induced meltdown. Regardless, he sticks with this line.
The rant didn't happen for another 7 hours or so. 7 hours of me getting bored off my head. 7 hours of me having to deal with some really dumb stuff.
But that poses a problem, obviously. How do you show evidence for a claim that isn't true? As is a simple answer. You don't.
So let's have a look at some of that dumb stuff.
As long as the credits keep rolling in, life's good.
Listen.
He indicates we'll see this groan-inducing gameplay that had apparently been winding him up for hours, and then fast-forwards all of it up to the one thing that did piss him off. For a segment claiming to put the infamous rant in its proper context, then there's an odd lack of context. It's a lack exacerbated by another odd editorial decision.
But I'm just going to show you exactly how we got to that point, and I'm going to use somebody else's footage because they were having a whale of a time going through it. Yes, we're going to view this from the eyes of Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers.
We relive what fragments of context Az does give us through an existing trimmed compilation video. Seriously, he hands the video off to Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, but this whole segment is just an existing commentary on the VOD's screechy pronoun-y highlights that channel published a year ago. The last half of the video starts with a loose, critical comparison of Starfield to Bethesda's previous releases, a belated, vindicating elaboration of the imaginary critique Az is pretending to have given all those months ago, before the wheels well and truly fall off, and the video devolves into a sloppy buzzword medley that hits the exact notes you'd guess.
Take Concord, for example. They purposely made sure to exclude white characters from the game because it's made by racist, progressive pig dogs that seem to exist on a steady diet of hormone blockers.
Judged as an accurate retrospective, then, it's the video equivalent of taking a victory lap backwards in the car park outside of a stadium other people are racing in. But obviously, that's not the piece's real purpose. Its real purpose is to embrace the Cassandra myth that Starfield's eventual tepid reception created in the minds of a viewership who only half remembered that rant's context, and to wring a few more go woke go broke viewership droplets from it. That's why the Geeks and Gamers segment is there, not to provide context at all, simply to cart in validation and catharsis from another anti-woke talking head. And all this worked. The views are rolling in, and the comments teem with praise for the foresight, the shrewd analysis that only exists in retrospect. All this has worked, with the only price for that working being Az's authenticity and creative dignity. And seemingly that's a price he's just as willing as his audience to pay. It's not the first time he's paid it. Believe it or not, Az wasn't always yelling about pronouns. In another life, his was a gaming channel, primarily World of Warcraft focused, but not exclusively. Once, there was a man who really, truly loved playing and talking about games, and wanted to share that part of himself with the world. Watching these old videos, you get a sense why so many had tuned in for those Starfield streams. He has some amount of screen presence. It's harder than you'd think to turn a video of you playing a game into something people enjoy watching. That's what Heel vs. Babyface was before 2018. That year saw the channel pivot from gameplay to gaming discourse, with something of a reactionary bent. And across the next year or so, perhaps realizing the flexibility of his new whiteboard rant format, as his other interests started to blend in. Media properties like Doctor Who, Star Trek, DC films and shows. And I say interests because while the tenor and negativity of most of Az's coverage is immediately familiar, it's clear there is some care, some real emotional connection to these things that, rightly or wrongly, Az sees as mishandled. Gradually, this stuff starts to crowd out the gaming more and more, gets more vitriolic, and gets joined by tangentially related culture war talking points that had never really popped up beforehand. You can scroll back through his feed and see the emphasis change in real time. And there is a little toing and froing between these niches over the following months, but by the time 2020 rolls around, this is Az's content. He's ranting about Doctor Who and complaining that James Bond and Star Wars are soy. After some initial viewership wobbles, he's back to getting eyeballs on this stuff consistently, and it turns out that some of those eyeballs belong to bigger fish. In March of 2020, Az was invited on Nerdrotic's podcast Friday Night Tights, after which his presence would quickly become a staple of the show. A month afterward, Az's new status led to him getting Nerdrotic, along with Boulderstrek and Doomcock, to stream on his own channel, and he was soon invited on EFAP too. Az's star continued rising throughout the year, and by its end, the whiteboard rant era was over, and his channel had entered its recognizable modern existence, with videos about virtue signaling, diversity, inclusion, cuties, and so on. But the real shift here isn't in topic. Looking at his uploads, we don't just see the shift away from whiteboards, we also see a phasing out of many previous topics in favor of forensic reporting on supposedly disappointing Marvel fare, and again, more videos built around abject buzzwords. If anything, the shift's more visible on the live streaming front. He first appeared on FNT to discuss Picard, a topic he was already more than familiar with, but his becoming a regular entailed doing that same commentary over all future topics, regardless of interest. His first EFAP was centered on videos discussing the Joker film, something he was sufficiently into to be the only film he discussed at all during one part of his gaming discourse whiteboard era, something he clearly likes and has original thoughts on.
But you always see him go up the stairs. The only time you see him go down the stairs is when he's Joker. This is him always going to his mundane life, and then the coming down is his liberation.
A year later, he's on to discuss Loki, which he doesn't. He doesn't seem to hate it either, the way he did Picard. He just doesn't seem to care about it either way.
Yet, even though it's been finished for like a week and a half, it's time to go back.
It was finished after the first episode, mate.
He's also audibly more bitter toward the topics and videos under review than he had been a year earlier, to the point that even the podcast's fans were calling him out on it. I think bearing this trajectory in mind casts new light on Az's embracing of the Starfield Rant revisionism. Whatever slight, ironic tragedy there might have been in his fans rejecting the authentic Az for this prophetic, based Starfield critic, the Az that serves the narrative, the one they've imagined into existence, is dispelled. Az is the one burying that authenticity, making that Faustian bargain to be watched more but seen less, again and again. He's been making it for half a decade at this point, and it doesn't look like he's stopping anytime soon. So, no, Az wasn't right. Starfield bad was never any real part of that rant. But it goes beyond that, doesn't it? It's not simply that Az isn't right, it's that he's barely even himself anymore, barely anything except another anti-woke cardboard cutout. Once there was a man who really, truly loved playing and talking about games, and wanted to share that part of himself with the world. I think it's worth noting, I think it's key, that in his own anniversary retrospective, his canonizing of that infamous moment, all the gameplay, the personality, the brief snatches of that man are stripped away, fast-forwarded. Everything except the chud yelling about pronouns. Looking back at the Starfield Pronouns rant and the moment's online afterlife has shown us a few things then. It's shown us the way critiques of wokeness, like so many of their reactionary sister discourses, operate on a purely aesthetic level. It's shown us the way a meme can be simplified away from its original context, can mutate into its own opposite in order to fit into these narratives. And it's shown us the way none of this matters, in the slightest, to the right audience. Az proved that woke fatigue is real, folks. They hated him because he told the truth. 1 year on and Concord was aborted 2 weeks after launch. You were so right all along. Stay winning. That fact that you haunt the weirdos in their every waking moment means your rant was a nuke on their values. Starfield bad was never the point. Immersions were never the point. The yelling was the point. It still is.
Shovel! You are dog shit! Fucking crap! Ideology! Into everything!
The warped, fading memory of the exhibit is preserved, clung onto. The photographs gather dust. Thank you for watching this video. I made one last week that's probably more important. You should watch that one. No more videos on this topic for a while. If you want to repay me for the countless hours of EFAP, FNT, and heel versus babyface streams I had to watch to make this video, any Patreon or YouTube member signups help more than you can imagine. Links are down below. Huge shoutouts to everyone doing so already, especially Hanan, Daniel Goldhorn, Magath, Something Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. Cheerio.